click. All right, so it's running now, and if I hit stop, it'll go off. When I'm ready to run it again, I turn it back on. Okay, so I'm gonna hit stop. Okay, thanks, Dave. Half hour. We don't know. We don't know. So, but we got this Dallas Hurd. Look him up on the internet. He's 28-year-old know-it-all with no experience, that he's going to fix us again, another outsider group, and I'm going to tell him that. That's all you are. There wasn't any convoy in town, was there?
It was the Idaho 3%ers that came in last night. They convoyed out this morning to the refuge.
So a bunch of them went together out to the refuge, yeah. The militia, yeah. All right. All right, thanks so much. Bye. Bye.
So to give you a first mile.
There's a mic running right now from now on. Yeah.
A few years back, Sports Illustrated had an article about the basketball team that led in Colorado, which I think is like 10,000 feet. Yeah. And we were talking about some of these pro teams.
They just come in gas. They run once up the court.
By halftime, they can't
our kids in the ask them whether I see all those sportsmen. So exactly. I mean, a kid 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
They still have the speed.
Going to break.
Just see like where normally they could run all game in the break room. My son was just like a canyon where he could run. But but then when they played at lower altitudes,
I got a red map though. You want paper?
You want it out
there? Yeah, I left it
I
for
was trying to hide it.
He was trying to hide it for you?
Have you fanned the flames?
No.
So the French. So the French media reporters were here. I bet they asked me 20 different ways. Don't you think our government's bad? Your government's bad. And I finally said, you know, you can keep this, you can put this on your tape or not. You will not get me to say our government is bad. We may need some fixing of it, but that's the way this country works. We'll fix it.
Is it Ben Franklin or Ben Franklin said democracy is the worst form of government except for all others?
Yeah.
You know, it was either him or Thomas Jefferson.
Let's hold that. We've got a banger here. I can see it coming. Two-pointed to start it out. I'm going to ask you not to go out there. What do you think, Tim?
What's that?
You saved me yesterday. I was freaking near asleep at the start of that one when he asked me to say our name.
Oh.
Anyway, but is it two-pointed from the start to say, look, I'm going to ask you not to go out there?
I don't think so.
I'm going to kind of add that, but say, we'll try and help you with the why if you want to ask questions.
You see that agenda for Friday?
Well, yeah, she's got her hands full with Colette Peters.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys aren't going to be testifying on the recordation, it's just staff only. So we got an update on that at the meeting last week that you guys have offered some concessions, and this is kind of all on deaf ears.
We still haven't seen any draft out of Brzezinski. Although we referred to it, LC-22, so there's something in the works, obviously, but I haven't seen anything. There's a legislative push to go to the recreational grand jury, which Oregon does not have.
Mm-hmm.
And last session, they weren't successful, but they basically put it off for a year. And it's back again. We started off, saying, okay, if you want to do recreation, great. The federal systems worked for years and years.
Mm-hmm.
Case agent, hearsay,
Yep.
sure, we can do that. That was not transparent enough. And in fact, there was some resistance even amongst the DAs about that, about the use of hearsay. So I'm not sure what's going to happen.
Interesting. Well, as you may have heard, at long last, we've started recording more of our interviews. The AG basically said, you got 3 months to implement a policy. And so, we had a lot of concern. We still do, not from our concerns were a lot of, we felt we never had anything to hide, but it was more just a logistics type of thing of how many interviews, when I was here in Bend and I would come out to Burns County to do cases. I mean, how many interviews were done, the back of my vehicle, what of the vehicle, subject, so how are you doing that? And then the cost of transcription, pre-indictment versus post-indictment, and so that was part of what we had to have a discussion with the Department of Justice was, okay, we can all agree, sort of pre-indictment, post-indictment, but our concern is that if you start saying we're not going to bring the case to the grand jury until it's fully transcribed, then it all falls on it. We can't have this sort of gamesmanship. We don't have the capacity.
Sorry, guys. Hi, it's Steve Grafton.
To do everything, you need to be selective. So we're still kind of going through some growing pains, but as far as implementing it, it's been. I was in favor of it because I know there's so many times in interviews and interrogations where you thought you had somebody, and they were doing this, and then they do this. And I just wanted to go back and watch the game film. Where did I go? What did I say? What did I change that so.
What word was it?
Exactly, yeah.
I'm there to, no way.
Yeah, like, oh. Yeah, because without being able to look at the tape, so it's been a good thing.
Well, the interesting thing is when this push started, when we would ask legislators, what is the purpose of this bill? What are you trying to achieve here? And they said, this is a result of Ferguson and an attempt for more transparency. And then we would point out to them when we do realize that Missouri has recorded grand jury, and in fact that's why so much is known about the Ferguson case, is because there was a transcript of the grand jury. Everybody knows what happened. So
that's an have you read the DOJ report on Ferguson? It's a very good read because it not only does it go through the whole factual basis and about the first 8 pages of what happened at the moment in question, sort of witness interviews, 911 tapes, all the, but then the aftermath, and there's a lot of good learning for law enforcement in that there were a great number of people who gave a statement that was partially untrue, wholly untrue, that up until the moment that they were going to go in front of the grand jury, they were told. What you said before is a freebie. If it was the honest truth then by all means go in. If it was not the truth and you go in, you're facing very serious charges. And so many of them changed their testimony. But a common theme, which is important I think for law enforcement, was you guys come into your investigation and you get to leave. But we have to live in this neighborhood with spray painting of snitches get stitches, and so it's always we tell our people, look, they may not lie to you or withhold because they're bad people or dishonest people. They're scared. They don't, you know, their relationship with law enforcement is much different than, you know, those who wear the uniform. So it's a great report. You start reading it like, wow. And of course, you know, he has no interest in going back and sort of looking at that. But it's an interesting report. Interesting, I found out in Utah, the state of Utah does not have a grand jury system. Of course, you do on the federal side. The state does not have a grand jury.
hearings.
Yep.
There's about a dozen. And they carpool from
Oh
somewhere.
my goodness. You need more chairs, Judge?
Yeah, there's one or two more out in the lobby.
Okay, I'll grab them.
What about in here, Steve? Chairs from in here?
Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 8. Good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
I'm Steve Grasty.
Representative Graham Hunt.
Nice to meet you. It's my wife Cindy.
Hi, Cindy. Nice to meet you.
I'm Tim Colahan, District Attorney.
Nice to meet you, sir. Graham Hunt.
Oh, sorry.
I think we should be pretty good here in a second.
Yeah.
I'm gonna steal one of these.
Let's close that door. So make it a tight room. Sorry. Since you got more of a group than I guess.
Absolutely.
We'll go around and do introductions. Just a minute.
Sounds good. And we have ID to prove who we are as well.
No infiltrators.
We're not trying to sneak in.
Hey guys, there's men's bathroom right here. And across the lobby is the women's. So. I got coffee. Do you want water? Okay.
Take some water. If you have
Water.
a bottle of water. Thank
I
you.
get
We
it,
good?
Judge. Yes.
So is there more? Are we everybody in? So let's take a minute and do introductions. So I'm Steve Grasty and I'm Harney County Judge. If you're not familiar with Oregon, in Harney County we got a judge and 2 commissioners. I'm full-time, the commissioners are part-time.
I'm Jason Myers, Marion County Sheriff.
Tim Colahan, Harney County District Attorney.
Eric Meyer, FBI.
And you are?
Lieutenant Brian Needham, Harney County Sheriff's Office. I'm second in command of the Sheriff's Office.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I'm State Representative Graham Hunt from Washington State.
Thank you.
very much. State Representative Matt Shea, Washington State.
Okay.
I'm a representative from Idaho, Judy Boyle.
Judy
Boyle.
Boyle, thank you.
YLE.
I'm Idaho State Rep Heather Scott, District 1.
Idaho Representative Sage Dixon. It's SAGEDIXON.
Okay, thanks. You guys.
Sure.
I'm Dallas Hurd, Oregon representative from Roseburg.
So, and this is my wife Cindy, and when you ask about local perspective, I just said, hey, jump in the car. She and I have been apart from each other way more than we're used to and over the last few weeks.
You got a little something going on down here?
A little bit. So, let me give you a quick overview, and then we'll ask some others here to talk, and then let's talk, answer your questions, and see what we can do to help you.
Sir, before we start, we have a representative, Michelle Fiore from Nevada, that was unable to come up here. We'd like to put it on speaker so she can listen in as well. That would be.
You got a number?
I do actually. Just a second. Pull it up.
And tell me her first name.
Michelle
Michelle Fiora.
Fiore. Fiore. Fiore.
Ah, thank you.
Let me get her on the line and tell her that you're going to call her.
Okay.
So she knows to take it.
Not some crazy county judge from Oregon calling her.
Burns County people.
Yeah. Yep.
Harney County people.
Yeah. Sorry, I forgot even that happened. It is Saturday, isn't it?
You know, before we get started, I just want to take a moment and say thank you for taking the time to meet.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I know that you've got a lot going on, and I'm sure the tensions are high. And our only goal here really is to help resolve and work with you to figure out a way to do that.
Okay.
So, thanks for taking that time.
Hey Michelle, it's Matt Shea. We're here with everybody in the office. We want to put you on speakerphone. It'd probably be the easiest thing to do right now. So they're going to call your number here in about 2 minutes, okay? All right, bye. Okay, it's 702-985-8142.
We're sorry, you have reached a number that has been disconnected or is no longer.
Oops, so maybe I did it wrong.
702-985-8142.
So 702
Yep.
985
Yep.
8142.
8142.
Maybe I misdialed it. Get up here where the bifocals work. 702 985 8142.
Hello?
Hello, good morning. Representative, this is Steve Grasty, Harney County Judge.
Hi, Mr. Graspy, did you say?
It is Grasty, and it's spelled like nasty. Grasty. And don't tell my mother I said that.
I love it.
All right.
Okay, so Graspy.
Okay, so would you, here's what we'll do to save a little bit of time. We'll do some introductions of those folks that are local. I think you probably know the legislators that are here. So, again, Steve Grasty.
Jason Myers, Marion County Sheriff.
Tim Colohan, Hardy County District Attorney.
Eric Barnhart, FBI.
And our local lieutenant for the Sheriff's Department, Brian Needham, stepped out for just a minute.
Who was with the FBI?
Eric Barnhart.
Eric Barnhart.
Barnhart?
Yes.
Okay, just like it sounds, Farm and Hart?
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
So, if it's all right, I'm going to start off, give a bit of an overview, and then we're happy to help you where we can, let you ask questions of us. So, first I want to say thanks for the interest.
Thank you guys for doing what you're doing.
Sure. Representative Hurd, I got to tell you, anytime we'd be happy to entertain you. And you said you struggled getting hold of our sheriff. Call me, call my office. You got my cell phone now. We'd be happy to help.
And this is Lieutenant Brian?
No, this is Steve Grasty speaking, and I'm talking.
The judge, okay.
Yep. Okay. So let me talk a little bit about some of the things that happened. I want to do the community perspective from my law enforcement. We'll let them talk with everybody understanding that law enforcement's not going to be able to talk about their tactical decisions and strategies. So a few nights ago, after I just don't have any other way to describe this. We had an armed group invade our community, came in here under the pretext of trying to help a couple, changed in the middle of the protest parade, and it was well known that it was a strategy. You could tell that from the Peter Santilli show, who said we're going to go take over the refuge headquarters midway through the march. So it was well planned. They left, they fragmented away from several other groups that were astounded that they were going to do that, and with arms took over a facility in my community. And I'm going to tell you, I'm openly angry. I'm going to stay openly angry at Mr. Bundy and his friends. This isn't the way we do business here. But so a couple nights ago, we had a community meeting. I would argue that there's little chance that any of you have ever had a public meeting in your community where 10% of the entire population was there. That occurred here. If you got a small enough one, you can do it. But it was astounding to see the turnout. If you took the voices that are not part of this community out of the room, I would guess the split was about 80 or 90-10 on go home, Mr. Bundy, go back to your families. If you added them in, it was about 80-20 to go home. It was 100% we're sick of government regulations. I'm there, I get that. I'm pretty passionate about the 17 years that I've spent in hundreds of trips across the state and dozens across the nation saying we need to be heard and locals need to be empowered. That's not what this is about. We have a group of criminals that have taken over a facility in our community that this community happens to love and take ownership, and this guy thinks he knows what's best for us. Forgive me, because I'm pretty passionate about this after a week. You may be perceived as no different. You're coming into our community and you're going to fix us. And every one of you can know that when that happens in your community is upset by that. I'm really curious, Representative, you said that you had something, legislative leadership buy into this?
My leader, Mike McLean, used to be Bruce Hanna, was the Republican leader for the House of Representatives. Mike McLean is now my caucus leader, and he's aware that I've been coming over here and supports what I'm doing.
Wow. So I can tell you we've been talking to Congressman Walden a number of times, and he understands the need to stay back and allow this situation to be handled. There are crimes going on out there, and we're very worried about it. Everybody, I've never heard one person say different than this. There is no intention on any law enforcement agency to go out there with guns ablazing and take over. That's not going to happen. Clearly, I mean, I'm speaking for where I shouldn't be, but I can tell you I've been in too many meetings. I'm going to tell you that.
Judge, could you just repeat that for me, because that's actually very relieving. So is it, to my understanding, that the FBI and local law enforcement are not going to go to the refuge, guns ablazing, kind of like a Ruby Ridge?
So let me finish up. That is accurate, the statement you just made. We'll let law enforcement talk a little bit more about that better than I can, but we'll come back to that. But your statement is correct, and it's what's been said all along, and what I believe we'll hold to. I am worried that your message is going to be perceived as your visit out there if you go, and I hope you don't go. But I'm worried that your visit is going to be perceived as all I got to do is do an armed insurrection at a federal facility and I can get the bully pulpit, and state and federally elected officials will show up at my doorstep. And it will be a terrible message. I want to end with two more things and then we'll try and answer this. Any questions that we can for you. I don't want you to go, but I'm going to tell you what you risk. I'm an elected official. I've ran 7 times and been beat twice. We all have some love of the jobs that we do and those careers that are associated with being politicians. But also knowing most of us, that's not what drives us in day-to-day life, is getting reelected. You risk taking ownership of anything that goes south. If something goes south when this is over, and somebody asks me what happens, I'm going to tell this whole story, including a whole bunch of elected officials from our state and others went out there, didn't resolve the problem, and it blew up. That will be part of the story. You risk that. Make your own decision on that. I'm not telling you that you're wrong, but my advice is do not go and meet with Mr. Bundy. I've met with Mr. Bundy once in this office. Your impression that he's a nice guy, he is not a nice guy. He is a very bad man. My wife is scared to be alone. She closes the blinds before I get home. She has a gun sitting beside her chair at home. We went out 2 weekends ago and refreshed her skills with a pistol. At least the world now knows she's armed and dangerous. I will tell you she's always been dangerous, but she's now armed. But this isn't funny. I pack everywhere I go with me except inside this building. I've never done that before, ever. But when people walk into this building with firearms, you got to be kidding me. So I don't know if I'm changing your mind, but I really want to change your mind. You cannot come into my community and fix us. It will not work. So So
Well,
you can
I
see-
just want to say I don't want to come in your community and fix you. So, I'm just looking at peaceful resolve.
We agree with that.
Well, if I may, I mean, the purpose for our visit is not to fix anything except to try to have a peaceful resolution to the situation. There were many invitations that were extended to myself and other people in this room, actually, to come down here to try to peacefully resolve it. And as a man that's spent 2 combat tours overseas and 10 years in the U.S. Army and been in very hostile situations, if there's any opportunity to save life and to prevent any further escalation of anything, I think we all agree that we should take those opportunities to do it. And that's our intent, was to come down here and try and get the lay of the land on the ground and not step on anybody's toes, but to be in a helpful position to try and resolve it peacefully.
And we agree with that. You need to know one thing. If you go out in our community, you will find opinions different than mine. Absolutely you will. But the people that are fearful of this,
Say that again.
you will find people that are of a different mind in this community if you go ask. Without a doubt, you will. You know how we all are as elected officials. There are folks on the other side of this. But right now, this is a crime that is continuing, and we need to figure out how to deal with that. But I'll quit whining here and let you guys speak, and we'll answer any question we can.
Gentlemen, we know we're outsiders. They are
Who's
outsiders.
talking? Who's talking?
I'm sorry, this is Judy Boyle from Idaho.
Hi, Judy. I just because I'm not there, so I can't see you.
We should identify ourselves. We know we're outsiders, and they are outsiders. And so maybe we can get through to them. You didn't do anything wrong. This community did nothing wrong at all. So there's nothing for us to fix here. Our fix is with them. And I totally agree. They did an act of civil disobedience, but they took it way too far, much too far. Now, I am from a ranching background, and I'm highly offended that they are talking for ranchers, and they are not.
There's no rancher in that picture. I'm holding up a picture of an Oregonian that has Mr. Bundy and friends on it. There's not one rancher in that picture.
I know. And so,
Well, do you not consider Mr. Bundy a rancher?
I do not. He's a used truck salesman.
his dad's.
Yeah, but he was raised ranching, though, so we can't discredit. I understand that everyone's upset, but we can't discredit his background from ranching.
Okay.
Can we pause? Judge, you've been the one that's speaking the most, and I really would like to hear from everybody else in the room as well. So if you don't mind, I'd prefer we pause for a moment. I'd like to give law enforcement a chance to speak. I think we would all agree and echo that we're not trying to be the outsiders that are the solutions. You see where we're meeting first. This is where we've come, and this is because we were invited. Now, some of us drove 9 hours to come here on an invitation to try to be a part of the resolution. Not to be outsiders trying to fix it, but we're here and we're in this room, and I'd really like to hear from the law enforcement's perspective as well.
Yeah. So this is Jason Myers. I'll maybe go first. So we're trying to peacefully resolve this. Our presence to help Harney County, the Harney County Sheriff's Office, the Sheriff's Association, local law enforcement, we're here to try to reinstill safety and security in this community, to bring the schools back online, to bring local government back online and businesses back online, because everything's been shut down because of the harassment. These folks have done an amazing job. Sheriff Ward, the judge, the resolve that they've had throughout the situation. Their families have been threatened. They have been threatened. Every single law enforcement official in this county by either direct or indirect threats. That needs to stop. This community needs to come back online. That's what our mission here is to make sure that that comes back online. What's going on the refuge? There's just one single way to end this, and that's for everybody to leave and go home. It's been made very clear, and that's what we want. If you go down there, you're taking your lives into your own hands, because we cannot assure any safety or security down there. We are not sending anybody if anything happens there, because we want to avoid a conflict. So I just want to make that very clear. We care about all of you, and we want you to be safe. But trust that law enforcement, the county, the judge, all of us are working together to resolve this as safely as possible. And the easiest way to do that is for everybody to go home. and this ends.
Agreed. And Representative Boyle, I am very glad to hear the words you just spoke, because there are many ranchers in this community that feel exactly the same way, that these folks do not speak for the ranching community. And here's what I'm afraid of, is that if you go there, I will guarantee you that the message that will be turned is that you were there in support of them. And I know that's not your intent, and I know other people that have gone there that was not their intent. Yet I know what the message that came out of it was. This has been going on in the community well before the takeover of the refuge. The sheriff's office has been dealing with this, and our community has been dealing with this since about November 5th. The issue that causes concern is not entirely just the occupation of that facility. It's the other people that this has brought into our community. And we have had a very difficult time of figuring out who they are and what their intentions are. And that has been the primary safety concern. There have been many threats made, and we can't go into the information, obviously, but there are people out at that facility, and there are people in the community that are dangerous people, very dangerous people. And that is why we've got the amount of law enforcement we have here, and why the school was closed last week. And we are very concerned. And Sheriff Meyer's message about the concern for your safety, that is not just, we're not just blowing smoke here. That is a sincere concern. So those are my two concerns. The safety of you folks and people going out there, and the message that is being delivered. Not your intent. I understand that, believe me, I do. But how it is going to be perceived, and then how it's going to be portrayed to the public.
May I ask a question real quick?
Mm-hmm.
Do we know how many people are out there? You mentioned there's many that are from outside.
We don't have a hard number, but it fluctuates.
Between...
I don't know. I don't know if we have the latest numbers, but it's just been so much in flux. Day and night, there's different numbers coming and going.
So 20, 40, 100, 200?
I can't give you a definitive number.
In that range.
Yeah.
Bigger than a bread box?
But they're also in town, you're saying? It's not just out
Yes,
there?
there's a lot of them that are staying in town, go out there during the day. That's where the encounters have been happening with law enforcement, other community members. They're armed to the teeth. They haven't been confrontational with law enforcement here locally, but you can imagine that would be concerning when you see somebody with a shotgun or a rifle in this day and age, small community. I mean, it's very concerning to the people.
It's not a neighbor.
Right. You don't recognize them. Yeah, exactly.
I'm from a small town as well, so I can understand and appreciate that.
Do you want to add anything?
I would just echo what the sheriff has said, and Sheriff Ward's sentiments. I worked and lived in Central Oregon for 6 years. Previously, I've known a lot of these guys for going on 15, 16 years. It's a fantastic community. And for my colleagues who aren't familiar with it, I say they are the best of the best, and our sole focus is a peaceful resolution where these gentlemen and folks come out in this community and get back to normal. That is our sole focus.
Would you mind, who invited you?
We were invited by a legislator here in Oregon, and actually several local people who are related to family. I mean, this is a small part of the country the West is, really, if you think about it, and that's who invited us to come down to see if we could be helpful in trying to resolve this. What I would ask you is, who has the authority to negotiate a peaceful resolution to this? If we break through to them, whether we go down there or not, if there's a conversation, who has the authority to negotiate a peaceful resolution to this?
I think I'll go ahead and answer that.
Okay.
There is no negotiation, just go home. That's all we ask, just go home. So we're not going to negotiate because we just want them to leave this community and let this community come back and heal and be healthy and be safe.
So their question is going to be, we want to go home, we want to go outside the state, who can guarantee that we can
The sheriff's already told them what the path is for that. They know.
He's offered to take them to either of the two state borders that are close to us, Nevada or Idaho.
Or Idaho, okay.
Nevada's close.
Depends on which way you go.
I'm from Idaho.
You just drove the road.
So, my county,
I'm not
you drive
arguing
100.
with a specific geographic location.
Yeah.
I'm
So,
just saying it's a matter of where to go.
I'm going to tell you, you drive a long ways before you got to Nevada.
Okay, so my question, if I was in their situation, drive me to the border and then what happens?
You're on your own.
Is that when the FBI
Yep.
takes over or what? I mean, that would be the question. And maybe they've asked you that, I don't know.
And can't get into specifics. Again, we fully support the sheriff saying that he's given them a deadline, which so far they have not met. Leave. We have a collection of individuals in there, so to give a blanket response, again, we stand with the sheriff.
As sheriff's deputies or sheriffs in the state of Oregon, we have no jurisdiction outside the state boundary. So,
But the FBI does. So I think that's a relevant question. So I don't know the answer. Maybe you're not prepared to give one, but I think it's a legitimate question.
Well, again, as the judge and the sheriff alluded to, we have a lot of people in from out of state and a lot of outsiders, and we don't even know who all is out there. So to give some sort of, if we don't know who's in there, we don't know what they've done.
So is it the FBI's intent then, if the sheriff were to escort them out, is the FBI's intent then to determine who is in there by checking everybody from that point?
No, we would not be
That's
trailing along.
just trying to
Understand.
right.
My question, are you willing to talk about what laws they've actually broke? And so I understand it's scary, people come into your community, guns. What is it that they're doing that's actually breaking a law?
I'm not sure that, so state law, so far no laws have been broken.
Okay.
It's the peace in the community. It's the threats and intimidations that have happened to local officials. That is the stuff that needs to stop, and we need these people out of the community for that to stop.
By individuals, I mean. So
By these groups, yeah, individual groups and whoever's been coming into the
So you're saying that
community.
the groups are making threats, or are you saying individuals are making threats to the people in the community?
We don't know. It could be
Well,
one and two individuals.
I'm guessing
Be certain.
someone reports how it happened. That's what.
People following people home.
Okay. So
People
individuals.
following people in the grocery store. People
Okay.
having comments with spouses about what's going on in the situation, being very, emotionally charged about it.
Okay.
Those are indirect threats. It scares families.
And you don't know who they are. They're not gonna say, I'm joking.
They're not
from
community
Midvale,
members. They're
Idaho,
people
and
from
come
outside
here
of
to
this
make a
community.
threat."
and if you have followed this situation at all through Sheriff Ward's comments and statements, his mother and father were contacted. In their 70s. They've actually been contacted several times and confronted. Sheriff Ward himself has received threats of personal harm through the internet, emails.
But are these, let me ask you a question. When you're talking about threats, are these credible threats that you can actually track the IPO number and actually, are these credible threats? Because this is Michelle on the phone. I don't know who else is on the phone, but I'm not really hearing, and I'm not for or against this. I'm just wondering, are these credible threats? I understand these people are in your community and you want them gone, but I also know some of these people, and I can't see them literally making a threat to another individual.
So we've seen threats that say, this is Steve Grasty, we've seen threats on the front page of the newspaper about Ryan Payne's statement that I have shooters lined up to kill federal employees. That one where he's quoted on the front page of the Oregonian, the biggest paper in Oregon. There's one. I got people turning around in my driveway. We got a pickup driving around in Burns that says F Islam with it spelled out 6 inches tall. I don't care how the guy feels about Islam, but the other word, not appropriate in our little town.
Where's the license plates from?
I don't know. It pops up on the internet. So we've got Montana, Wyoming, Idaho, Nevada.
If you have a vehicle driving in your community with profanity on it, you're the law. You can pull them over. You can, run their plate. So, like, when you're giving me these hypotheticals, but you're not giving me facts, and it's very difficult for me to sit here and understand when you're saying these things with no. So there's a pickup truck. What if it's your neighbor's son?
So
not someone from out of state.
So 2 individuals out of that pickup follow a BLM employee and tell her she ought to die and she shouldn't be in this community. Is that good enough of an example?
So Michelle, this is Matt.
Okay, just go ahead.
Michelle, this is Matt Shea. I think there are numerous specific documented examples of threats. I don't know if it's specifically identifiable who is doing it necessarily, as much as that they are most likely not from this community. I wanted to shift gears a little bit and ask, what federal laws do you believe have been broken here? So we have that kind of that rounded out picture for us.
I can't answer that question. I'm not a federal agent.
Yeah, and I would have to defer to the U.S. Attorney's Office. I know that's being looked at now.
Okay,
It has been since
but
the
you
beginning.
definitely believe that there have been federal laws.
It's a federal facility, so now we're looking at exactly the nature of what may have been. There are employees, federal employees, who are unable to go to work. So there are, as far as.
Are you looking at, is it misdemeanor level? Is it felony
Again, I would
level?
refer you to the U.S. Attorney's Office, because that's they're looking at right now.
Are they looking at both of those? If you can tell me that they're looking at both of those types, felony and misdemeanor.
We're just not going to be able to answer that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not at this time.
They're evaluating everything. And again, this is a changing situation.
Yeah, fair enough. It helps us get the full details of that picture. Yeah. Dallas, did you have anything?
I'm still listening.
Okay.
So can I ask why the sheriff isn't here?
He's attending to other matters right now.
Okay. This wasn't an important enough meeting?
He's been working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for the past 2 months. So
I'm not
he's
questioning
attending
his
some
work
other
ethic,
matters. He's around,
Okay.
and it's important, but he's busy.
I'm sorry. Did I mishear? Did someone say this was not an important enough meeting for someone to attend?
No,
it was a question asking why the sheriff was not present.
It's how
Not a
everybody
statement,
started.
a question.
Exactly.
And if I may interject, Sheriff, being the guy from the UCC shooting, that's my area. I live not too far from UCC. I drive by it every day. Were you over there, sir, at any point? I understand they're different, but they're similar in the sense of the media attention and just the chaos that comes afterwards, the stress you guys are under. I can actually appreciate that. Okay. I think what some of my colleagues here are asking is, I got into a very not nice conversation with one of my colleagues that represents this area from my caucus on the way here, and his opinion of me coming was totally different, really, from the previous conversation a couple days before. And then I got a similar plea from you, but you and I didn't have an unpleasant conversation. You're just asking for us not to go out there. It's somewhat odd to me that you don't want us to go out there so greatly, but yet the sheriff isn't here to tell us why. That's just a concern.
Listen, I'm going to defend our sheriff. He's 2 tours in Afghanistan, maybe one was in Somalia. 2 tours, veteran of our nation. He's a great guy. He's flat frickin' wore out, as am I. He's been putting in a whole bunch more hours than I. And for him to not be able to get a break and then be criticized because of an unknown meeting that I only had notice of about 4 or 5 hours ago is a little bit beyond me.
I called his office a couple days ago.
I fully understand, but I can tell you that in 2 days I put 750 minutes on my cell phone. He's putting that to shame.
My Sheriff Hanlon told me that he had called yesterday and that the sheriff would be here, was what I was
No, Sheriff Hanlon talked to me,
Oh,
and
okay.
I told him I would be here, and he gave you my cell phone number, and you never called.
Yeah, I don't think I got it, though.
Judge Grasty, I don't think you talked about the briefing that we had yesterday.
So, thank you, and thanks for that reminder. So, we met with legislative leadership. Peter Courtney was on the phone.
Okay.
Representative Bentz was on the phone call. All the agencies that are here were represented. We worked through this whole situation. with them, gave them an update. It's my intention, although it may change, it's my intention to drive to Salem tomorrow, give the governor an update, and meet with all the counties from Oregon on this. You guys see how passionate I am about this. If we're getting close, and we don't know that. I don't know that. I'm not privy to this. Matter of fact, I intentionally stay out of law enforcement. If we're getting close, and you embolden Mr. Bundy by your presence, and this runs on for weeks and months, it will be awful in this community. It needs to end. I can tell you, I reached out to all the rest of the county commissioners in the state of Oregon and said, anybody dealt with something like this, and can you come over? And Tim Freeman came over and spent 2 days with me. He gets it. He was there with you. And he was an incredible resource for a couple of days. Pain in the butt part of the time, but without a doubt, a great resource for me to bounce ideas back and forth, and I really appreciate it. So we kind of get a little bit. This one doesn't go away. It's in a single event, and then you're dealing with follow-up and all the nightmare and the grief and all that. God forbid we end up with that. We are not going to let that happen. What the folks at the refuge do could change that. That will not happen from law enforcement. I'm absolutely convinced of it. And if you think it is, and I think I hear that from some of you, I have no idea where that can be coming from unless you use Facebook way more than I do, and I hate it personally.
Amen. I think we all
The
do.
love-hate relationship.
Yes.
You asked, and Sheriff Myers covered this a little bit. Part of our concern with you guys going down there is for safety issues. I think everybody's seen the news, video clips. They have a 75-foot tower on that property that they have snipers in. They have individuals up there with long guns, spotting scopes. They have a mile range that they can see. There's armed individuals down there. We, because of the safety issues, and we don't want to escalate this, we are not responding to that compound or that refuge headquarters because of those issues. And this is all information that you can see on the news. You can see people walking around with sidearms. You can see the people up in the tower. It's not a sensitive information issue because it's on camera with the press. That is part of our concern for you guys and ladies as representatives from your various districts and states, is that safety issue. So let me be naive about a law enforcement issue. All those rigs out in front, you head for the refuge headquarters in that caravan, what do you think they think is coming? I'm going to tell you, that place is isolated. This is a big place. You guys have wide open counties. You get it. 7 or 8 rigs in a row coming towards them. I'd probably cross the line here, but I'm going to ask you this. Was there an event where those guys thought that there was a convoy coming and they blocked the road? That's on Facebook. Is that a BS story? I'm not aware of that situation.
So, but I'm going to tell you, that many rigs come in them, you guys figure out what they're thinking.
So I don't know if you can answer this, but have you had communications with Bundy to continually to say, go home, stop, we'll take you to the border?
The last communication that law enforcement has when Sheriff Ward met with them. And
That's on
That was
Facebook.
on
Yeah.
Thursday.
The community has delivered that as well,
Yeah,
over and over.
That was Thursday, which was the morning, well, I guess it was the afternoon after our public meeting here in Burns.
And did he respond at all, or
Yes.
yeah,
just say, I'm not leaving?
that's
Correct.
This may be naive, but I want to ask. So, in the event that one could convince them to go home, which I think we would all agree is the absolute best situation, that they leave peacefully, however, whether it's through an escort or they simply leave. I think that's more than fair, and I think that's exactly what all of our goals are. I'm sure that's what your goal is too. I don't believe anybody here doubts that. What I'm curious of is when I watch Mr. Bundy speak, he says, we're not going home unless, and I may be misquoting, but we're not going home unless the lands get transferred back to the people. Now, I realize that nobody in this room has that ability, nor is it something that could simply be done by the stroke of a pen. It's much more complex than that. What I'm curious of is would it be possible for somebody, whether it's the U.S. Attorney's Office, somebody, somewhere, to say that we agree that there needs to be a conversation at another level, and maybe have somebody appointed to creating this position or do. I'm really just kind of shooting from the hip here, so forgive me. But is there a way to say, yep, we absolutely agree that this conversation has already been escalated, and this agency or this person at this place is going to work at having this conversation over a prolonged period of time? Because obviously this isn't going to, I don't think anybody in this room believes that federal lands are going to be transferred overnight and that this is all going to be an issue that we can go home with. Right. I mean, I don't think any of us believes that. So, and I don't know Mr. Bundy, so I don't know if he honestly believes that or not, but is there a way to, not coming from us, but coming from law enforcement or coming from somewhere, and I would believe it would be out of the county, and so I'm specifically looking at you, Special Agent. Is there a way to have that dialogue and say, look, we realize that, and there's going to be a prolonged conversation, and we're committed to having that conversation, now go home? Is that a possibility?
I would say that there are already legal avenues through their elected officials to address these things. I think that people would say that this issue is now front and center. Is this continuing course of action going to undermine now the fact that this has been highlighted? So I don't think
that's
that
kind of the reverse of what he's saying, because you're saying what they're doing is a negative to it. And what
Absolutely.
the representative is saying is, here's we're going to toss you a bone to help you go home with something to feel good about, if you would.
I would have to defer, because I know some of these gentlemen have actually spoken to other elected officials in Oregon, so I don't want to go and who I think
Sure.
made some
I'm sorry to be
statements on that.
contrary.
I'm not trying to be, but I think that, again, with the coverage around here, I don't think that this issue is going to go away. But I think right now, again, I don't want to speak for the community. I have deep affection. I don't live here anymore. But I think they've said, we understand some of the issues, but we are not supportive of this action. So I'm not sure if me or anybody in my position is the right one when we're in the executive branch and the legislative.
You may be able to channel it up.
That, right. Could that be conveyed up the federal?
Believe me, this is nothing is going unnoticed in this whole situation. Right. So it's not.
Right.
Again, I can't say it enough. I just want those gentlemen to go home, and if there is, things that they can go through with the legislative process, you all, at the U.S. level, our goal is to end this peacefully.
Get some sort of resolution to say, we've heard you. Here's something.
That's what Representative McClain, the leader of the Republican caucus, was talking with me about. He's an attorney as well. He's actually got an extremely similar background to you, Matt. One of the reasons he's not here is just because he has a commitment with his military stuff. So he's actually doing some military work today. And I wish he was here, because this is my first term in office. The only reason I'm here is just because from afar, not you guys at the county level, please understand that. It seems like the issue just continues to escalate, and when I had Mr. Bundy call my phone a couple nights ago to talk to me for a couple hours, at that point anyway, and I don't think anything has changed. No one from the state legislature or from a congressional level has called or reached out to him or he has talked to. And I don't feel like that's helping anything.
Let me put this maybe in context for you.
Yeah.
So the guy goes into the UCC, and he doesn't shoot anybody. He goes in there, he's in the room, he's got his gun in his holster, and he says, I'm not coming out till you listen to me. Where would you have been? I'm going to tell you that negotiation would have occurred.
Wouldn't recommend that we don't do anything until we finally shoot somebody. I'm not talking about Mr. Bundy. I don't think anybody in this room would doubt that at this point there's some truly radical people that have joined up, and that's
including Mr. Bundy.
I don't know.
I've been in my office.
Judgment. What? So could you elaborate on that?
So when a guy's principle is local decision making should be what it's all about. You guys all know American Land Council, and Is it Senator Ivers? I mean, I've been through his presentations too, and there's no success story around that yet. And if there's a success story grounded out of this, it's a mistake. It's a huge mistake, because it'll happen in your states. We'll just go in and take over. But Mr. Buddy comes in here and sits down and tells me his interpretation of the Constitution. And I said, nice interpretation. It's different than what I was ever taught. It seems to be only about one of the amendments, not all of them. And it's piecemealing out of it. And then I said, you know, I got a different take at this. And he says, I don't want to hear your opinion. So I would spend all day long defending your right to have a different opinion. But when you have a guy that comes in and says, I'm not listening to any, he comes in to meet with the sheriff, and to this day, the only criticism I've ever had of our sheriff is why he let two guys into his office with sidearms on is beyond me. That's not how you start a good conversation. I've met with the Idaho 3%ers and said, don't bring your guns or I'm not talking to you. You are not going to change this guy. He's resolute. Individuals from here have gone down. I'm worried you guys are so resolute that you don't care what's getting said here, that you're going.
It's not true for me.
Okay, because you terrify me.
It is not true. The reason we're here.
Well, yeah, I can talk for myself. I don't want to terrify you because we are listening. I can say, Michelle Fiore in Las Vegas, Nevada, I am listening to you and taking all of your words in. And so, you know, there's just, I'm listening. So it's not like we're hell-bent on going up there and making a statement.
If I may I, Matt?
Oh, yeah,
if I may go back to what law enforcement said, at least county, and I'd like to hear that statement from the federal. You said at no point are you planning on going there and initiating contact with them in a hostile way.
No, we have no plans this going
Let them
forward.
freeze out.
They're out there.
Is that a good? Because I mean, if I was in your shoes and my only goal, and this is more for the federal, just to be honest, because I'm personally not a big fan of the federal government. Okay, you as an individual,
I'm not so
don't take that personal. I believe you. This is not for the county. I really have no question where your guys' hearts are. So you knowing your job and the people you work with, that is your strategy. Leave them alone, let them freeze out until they disband.
Peaceful resolution of this thing. We will do everything possible to make sure.
And
I mean, I can't say it in any clearer terms.
Because this is a perfect time of year for them to just get sick of what they're doing and get bored and feel like nobody's listening, nobody gives a damn anymore, and just be like, you know what, I got kids at home, I got a job, I got other crap to do.
yesterday at the legislative briefing that we had, Greg Bretzing, who's the FBI agent that was here and will be coming back on Sunday, said the same exact thing, that and he has said it many times at meetings I've been at, that absent some threat to life or use of physical force against people out there, there will not be an armed entry into the on
We've all heard that.
We have.
Okay.
We all we appreciate it. I mean, I think I speak for everybody. I mean, that is one of the main reasons that we came down here, not to listen to the media, because everything gets spun, and I don't think anybody's words get put out the way they are actually intended or meant. So I think that's one of the key reasons we're here. I would also say this, that the frustration, I mean, you have a very diverse number of states represented here, and the reason is because the BLM, just as well documented the threats are in the community here, as well documented the abuses of BLM and some of the things that have gone on that have happened. And there, I'm not going to just blame BLM for everything, but there have been very well documented cases of BLM abuse. And I think that the problem is that people right now feel so frustrated and so hopeless and so out of options that they may look at this if these folks do not go home and actually do this in all of our states. And one of the reasons we're here. And so if we're able as elected officials to go down there and talk to them, or even not go down there, maybe talk to them on the phone, because we actually do have phone communication, and get them to go home, and start the dialogue with them, then that is a template to start the dialogue with other people that are as frustrated, as feeling hopeless in all of our states as well. Because really this is a state and federal solution that is going to happen ultimately, regardless of what anybody thinks about the matter. That's what's going to happen. So that's kind of where we're coming from as well.
And the last thing we want is more.
Right.
Because what you're seeing right here, and what we're all probably hearing in our little boxes of what we're dealing with, is an echo of what's happening.
It's true.
And and quite frankly, the longer this goes, the potential for that echo to get louder.
That's
and I'm all for a peaceful resolution, and I think we all are. But we don't want this to go another 2 months. We don't want it to go another 2 days. Quite frankly, we have to be in session on Monday, so it's not something that so right. So we're not here to. We don't want this duplicated, right? And just like you want it to go home, we don't want to be facing this very same issue in Idaho, in Nevada, in Washington, or any other state that maybe couldn't be here today, right? We want this done, and that's why I was asking you that, sort of a plea and asking, is there a way that we can have some sort of response? I'm not saying a promise that there's going to be a change, but a continuation of a dialogue regarding the federal transfer of lands. I mean, I don't know.
If they disperse.
If they disperse and end this now and go home.
So
and if you gave us that authority to go and speak to that, that would be great.
Let me try and help you on a couple of notes. If you give them that, we're going to have a conversation about this. They're going to say, we have these father-son who have were resentenced, and so we need some resolution there. And they're going to pick out 2 or 3 more. This isn't about the Hammonds at all anymore.
Do you think it's going to stop if we don't have that conversation?
Yes, it will stop. We will eventually, whether it's wearing them out.
That are going to do this and duplicate it.
So no, I think it's going to keep happening, and particularly if they get off scot-free at the end of the time.
Nobody's saying scot-free.
Okay.
That's not something I'm talking about at all. Part of the question that you heard Rep. Shea ask is what laws were broken at the federal level. Nobody's saying we're going to go home and everything's going to be fine. And I don't honestly believe, and I haven't spoken to them, but I wouldn't honestly believe that anybody that takes over a federal facility with guns and decides to do this would expect to go home scot-free. I don't know. I can't speak for them. I haven't had that conversation. I don't think a reasonable person would have that expectation. But what I am saying is that taking the emotion out of this, because I realize that you're emotional on this. You have folks running through your county and through your town that are guns, that are outsiders, that are creating a disturbance and creating tension. And I understand that wholeheartedly. You're talking to a couple of veterans that have both been in combat. Your sheriff, as you've mentioned, have been in combat. I don't know the background of everybody here, but I understand how things escalate. Been there, done that. We all want a peaceful resolution and go home, and I think everybody here is saying that. You're saying that, we're saying that. Now the question is how, aside from putting it out, and that's why I'm asking these questions, is how. Now, nobody's saying scot-free. If it means that you escort them, and that's why I asked that question, is the FBI going to be there at the end saying, oh great, now that you're outside of Oregon, now let's run you through a process line. I'm sure that you have some idea. I know the technology that I dealt with in 2001 to 2005, and we had a very good idea of who was around and when they were around. I'm sure that it's only gotten better since then. So I'm sure that there is some idea of the characters that are there aside from those who have been speaking very publicly. So there is potential for follow-up beyond this point. It's not as though they go home and it's over. But I do want to find a way that they go home and it's over here.
So we also don't want to, I mean, if you think through this isn't, can you imagine, so we resolve the issue here, only we make it happen 30 feet into Nevada or Idaho? That doesn't even make good sense. So,
but I wonder if they all go to jail.
So I want you to hear something about our community, all of you. I think what's most offensive to us locally, this community has been a leader nationally on the sage grouse issue. We're the ones that wrote the candidate cooperative agreements with assurances for every other county in the state. Our community did that. The refuge where they're at, we have the CCP, the long-term planning document. That was written by us, not the feds. Feds were at the table, but we wrote that. And now you got some guy that doesn't know us, and he's undone that. We're making gains towards our local people being empowered. He just destroyed it.
I don't really understand. I've heard a lot of people say that from an elected position. I don't understand how, as everybody says, nationally, locally, statewide, how an outsider who was uninvited undoes your work. Meaning, like, why would you be blamed? If the people that are in the power position to make that call are that low in character that they blame you even though you didn't invite this wolf into your door, that doesn't make sense to me. Because I wouldn't blame you for that.
You've run for office. What makes sense about electors? Figure, you know,
I'm just saying we can. It
is absolutely true.
There's a lot of things I don't like about the people that I have to work with. I don't see too many of them blame communities for a bunch of guys that just come flying in the night, as if it's the community's fault.
Afterwards, and I run out and say, you know what, our federal employees are really great people. Mm-hmm. They're wonderful people we're going to be glad to work with. I think that's going to set in this community today. I think that's wise for me to do that when it's over tomorrow. If it's not, we're going to have to repair those relationships. This guy has fragmented our community.
My question is for Mr.
I have a question, if it's okay. This is Michelle Fiore. And I totally understand what you're saying, and I feel for you in your position for your community. But one thing that I'm looking at as a bigger picture is our western states, where the BLM has become a bureaucratic agency of basically terrorism, and they have taken lands from your citizens, and they have put all of our citizens at risk. So how do we answer that? I mean, right now the spotlight is on Oregon, and Rep. Matt Shea and myself dealt with it when it was here in Nevada, and thank God we winded up with a peaceful solution because we had reps from all across the western states helping us here in my state, which is the state of Nevada. So at what point do you guys say, look, we do have a big federal problem. BLM has taken advantage not just of your citizens, but our citizens and Idaho citizens and Texas citizens. So at what point do we band together as elected officials and say enough is enough to the BLM? So can we divert this conversation? At what point are we actually going to do something for our citizens?
So, ma'am, I've worked 17 years very passionately on that issue. And I guess the only good thing here is there's only one state legislature of mine in this room, so I get no payback in the middle of it, at the end of this. I'm going to tell you, we have passionately done that. There are more acres of private ground by tens of thousands today in my county than there was 20 years ago. Not more public, more private land because of swaps. We have this success story. We've gained this relationship, and it's different in every place. Do we talk about transfer of federal ownership to us? Sometimes, but run the numbers. Who's done that? Who's done it successfully? No state, no county has done that successfully. We don't have the resources to put millions of dollars to run this up through the Supreme Court. That's not the conversation today. Get these criminals, and they are terrorists, out of my county.
So I do want to say that North Dakota and South Dakota specifically have done that, and that is a historical fact and legal fact. But
show me, because I've been through them too.
Well, 5% there, because Washington and Montana came into the Union under the same Enabling Act, and those lands in North Dakota and South Dakota were transferred to the states. They were not transferred based on Montana and Washington. But I got
it isn't worth the discussion.
I got it. But all I'm saying is with that this is not, because we can have an honest discussion on that, and it's going to be years before there is a solution to this. That's my point, not to be argumentative. And so therefore, the template that we need to have come out of this needs to not be, hey, go take the federal building over and go straight to the media. It needs to be, go to your local legislators, the state level particularly, and the federal level. More likely the state level is going to be a little bit more effective on some of this, and engage them first in the future when you feel hopeless and like nothing's happening, and get on board with that type of a solution. That's what I would like to see as the template coming out of this. And I think that if we don't engage in some manner, I'm not saying going down there, but don't engage in some manner, then we can't set that template. That's where I have the problem, because other people are just going to say legislators don't want to listen to anybody. And we're already hearing it in our own communities. I'm already hearing it up in my own district. Exactly, hey, well, if this is the only way to get attention, then we need to do it too. I can't do that. I want to have the template, hey, I'm open to being talked to from any citizen in Washington that's undergoing this. And that really, to me, would be a big win out of this. And I'm sorry, Heather.
That's all right. So I wanted to address Mr. Barnhart, but I'm going to address what you said. So I think by calling these people criminals and terrorists, that is just going to escalate this even further. I think that's very dangerous language. I see it as citizens that are pushed to their limits. They feel they have no other options. And that's why I want to address you, Mr. Barnhart. So I see this, and maybe you see it differently, but you've had some experience at a federal level, I'm guessing, with Occupy Wall Street. And I kind of see this as a very similar situation. I know they probably didn't have guns strapped to them, but this is an open carry state, is it not?
Didn't they burn cop cars?
I think there was a lot of
They did.
defecating in buildings, and
Guys.
so I guess what my question is for you, Mr. Barnhart, is what kind of solutions, negotiating solutions to get those citizens out of buildings, you know, down with corporations or what have you? What kind of techniques, and can we apply some of those negotiating things? I kind of take a little offense to negotiating to terrorists. I don't, just because someone has, I live in a real rural area, everyone has a gun, not everyone's a terrorist. I just, people come in and out of my community with guns strapped on them all the time.
Well, and it's adding a label to an already tense situation. And
It really
Judge Grancy, I understand your emotional connection, and believe me, I can feel the emotional conversation, but I truly want to remove the emotion. I really do, and that may be too difficult for you at this moment. So that's kind of why I'm pivoting to law enforcement here, because I don't want this to be an emotional conversation for us or you. I really want to get to the same resolution, and we'll deal with what they've done, and we'll figure out a way forward there. But I truly
So maybe
want
I'll take to answer your question.
Thank you.
Each situation is dynamic and unique in themselves. The negotiation here is simple. Go home. This whole thing ends. Go home. And it's done.
But in a negotiation, you give a little, you take a little. You know that. I don't know what your negotiation background is. I'm sure that the special agent has gone through that. In all negotiations, whether you're talking union
We've negotiated.
negotiations-
We'll give you a ride out of the state. That's what we're offering. Go
Then
home.
I don't
Let this
think that-
community come back to peace. The
but that
people that are
clearly
here
hasn't worked.
don't live here.
I wholeheartedly agree.
Go home.
But it hasn't worked. So what else can we do to try to get to that same
And our
point?
tactic is to wait.
I think waiting is dangerous for a lot of reasons. I mean, I've had people all over my state contact me saying, we're ready to go to Burns. To stand with them.
And you know what I'd appreciate is you tell them don't do that, because that escalates the situation.
And we have,
And as
absolutely.
public officials, you have an obligation to make sure that the community's safe and your constituents are safe. So that would be my recommendation to you is we just want these folks to go home, and it de-escalates everything.
Well, and a quick answer to that too, to those folks that have said that, is, hey, we're working on legislative solutions to this, you need to talk to us.
So I get what you're saying. I'm the executive branch. The Office of Sheriffs is the executive branch. You're the legislative branch. You're the ones that work those issues. So that's in your wheelhouse,
I'm just
not
trying to
ours.
what we're already doing, I'm sorry. I was
Yeah.
trying to
Is it not easy, though, to simply say that we're going to continue this conversation, and here's who's going to continue it at the federal level?
We can't, from our
I know you
perspective,
can't.
I can't make.
I'm going to Agent Barnhart here, and maybe you need time to come up with that, and I understand. And maybe I'm naive in the fact because I haven't spoken to everybody there, but it sounds like that could be something that would go. Now, I'm only going off of what I've read and heard, and the other legislators here may have a different perspective. But if there's a way to make them go home now, today, pack up, go, then I really want to get to that point. Rather than waiting, because I don't want it to happen in my state.
And because my only concern is it not to continue to escalate, I'm begging you, please stop with the terrorist level. And it's not just you, Judge. There's been other elected folks that have said it to me, and that is there's a lot of
If
people,
we're gonna-
there's a lot of people that are not here.
So,
I'll go for that, but
Question.
let's not call the BLM terrorist either,
Terrorist?
because some of those people are my family members.
Okay, so let me ask you a question, because right now you have your citizens, the Hammonds, that are in jail for terrorism, and we're talking about an accidental burn that they put out. What about the BLM that when they go and they want to do maybe a 3,000 acre burn and they burn 10,000? Where's the accountability for that? That's what I'm saying. As elected officials, we basically constantly tell and show our citizens to do as we say and do as the laws we write, but don't do as we do. So how do we set an example as electeds, and I'm talking about from all of the western states, including your state, Oregon, how do we set the example that we're there for the people? Because you just threw one of your citizens in jail after a judge said enough is enough, and I would really like to meet that judge who thought that the 3 months was enough and that you convict your citizens, the Hammonds, as terrorists. I mean, so you really have to be cautious on how we throw that word around.
So here's the greatest example, and you just put it together, why you should not go there. And Madam Representative, I apologize, but I'm going to tell you the ignorance that you just displayed on the circumstances associated with the Hammonds is coming out of Mr. Bundy's mouth, and it has nothing to do with facts.
So just to reiterate, the only reason I am here as the lone representative from Oregon in this town is just about anything that I could have possibly done to help de-escalate the situation. Forget about the Hammonds, forget about land use policy, all that stuff. The only thing I care about, and that's why I came to you first. It wasn't just because you called me. My sheriff called you, and the reason I didn't communicate back, I have to check my text. I don't know if I got your number, but he told me you'd be expecting me around the time we got here, so I apologize for the gap in communication. The only thing I care about is that,
If my representative was sitting beside you, it would help me a whole lot.
You're right, and I invited him here, and he said he wouldn't come.
And gave you the reasons.
Yesterday. There was no reason for him to be here, Representative.
I heartily disagree. I heartily disagree. When an event, if I may, sir, when an event like this is happening, I mean, my gosh, you've got to come here to support you guys. If he did nothing but come here and just back you up.
He's been doing that. Don't have any doubt about that. Okay, we're talking on a regular basis. I also think you're naive to not realize that he is a part of it, and we've been strategic on
Well,
it.
he used the word terrorist too several times on me, and it's not making things better.
Ask her if she's terrorized by this.
I believe it. I'm sorry, miss, that you've gone through that. I hope you understand that. I hate anything that anything a radical, whoever it came from, did to you. I hate him for it.
Judge.
Well, I'm not the only one in this county that's done this.
So if we can, kind of wrap it up. I think I'm going to speak broadly and say I think we agreed not to throw the terrorist label around. Either way, BLM or the folks out there at the refuge. I think the second thing is if we can see if there's any way to push up the line, maybe the potential for a conversation. I think that might be a little helpful as well. I think we're going to all probably get together after this and talk a little bit more, because that's what legislators do. But really appreciate, I really appreciate your forthrightness, and I hope that we've been forthright with you and you feel that way. This is a situation that's going to have ramifications for the whole entire country, but particularly us in our own backyard here in the West. And so I thank you for taking the time to lay it out. I really appreciate the commitment to a peaceful resolution and really seeing this through, and then also recognizing that this is going to be a long-term issue to try and solve the Western Lands conundrum as well. So thank you very much. And I never expected to be down at Burns, Oregon right now, right before session. And we are here not to do anything to be harmful. We're here to be helpful. And understand too that before any of us actually came here, I think speaking for all of us, we all prayed, we all thought about it before we even answered the invites as well. And so this is from a pure heart, and I hope that came across today. All right. So thank you again for taking the time.
Thank you.
Thanks. Be thoughtful in whatever you do.
Absolutely.
So do we have a guarantee if we do decide to go out there, we're not gonna get blown up or something? No drones are gonna come
not
out
from
there.
law
If you read
enforcement.
Facebook, it could happen.
We cannot guarantee what happens when you get down there because we just don't know, and we're not coming if anything goes sideways.
Okay.
Because we do not want to escalate this thing.
You really very professional, and thank you very much for taking the time. Really appreciate it.
So I apologize for my emotion, you guys, but this is tearing this place up. And I love this place, and I love these people.
Well, we have the same end goal in mind. We really do. And
I just don't want you to blow it for us. So,
And
I
neither
mean,
do
enough
we.
said.
I'll be honest,
Okay.
I mean, knowing that you're willing to just let them freeze is a big deal to me.
It's hard to shut the power off down there because of the situation and the power system there. So there's lots of
You
things that
can't
go.
bypass as far as just coordinating
So-
to shut it down there.
You have any clue how big 10,000 square miles is? It's the entire Willamette Valley, the floor of it, all the way up to Corvallis. That's how big this place is. And we got one system. So not easy. You're not going to drive into the compound, crawl up on the pole and pull the top off the transformer. Probably not going to happen.
And so people have been taking their groceries from town, right?
Sadly. The longer they're there, the worse it
They're
is
coming
here
and
too.
going from town.
They are, yeah.
Everybody out there is not a local. I mean, are there any locals out there?
We
Or you
advise them
don't
not
know,
to.
'cause it's
We don't
just
know.
fluid. Okay.
The appearance that, from what we've seen, it's all folks from out of state.
There have been locals going out and talking to them, just same way you guys are talking about doing. So there have been locals doing that. If they're staying or not staying, we don't have that information.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right.
Yeah. Thanks, be safe.
Thank you very much.
Went to grade school, junior high.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your hard work.
Thanks for
Nice meeting you.
No hard feelings on that.
Thank you, sir.
Half the days on that trip.
Nice to meet you. In the belly of the beach. Very much. Appreciate it.
Hopefully we never see each other again, right?
Safe travels, you guys.
Government employees kind of for that work.
Nice meeting you.
It's not gonna happen unless.
Thank you. Thank you for the coffee.
Thank you.
It's nice meeting you.
Are you guys all headed home tonight?
We're gonna chit chat and see what we're gonna do.
Or are you guys gonna stay in?
I have no
I tell you, it's gonna be very hard to find a hotel room in Burns right now.
Yeah, oh, at all times.
Yeah, I
Our
know.
agenda is very clear.
So,
And now.
Well, whenever, you know, however
A lot
long
of
it's
ties
out,
tied
it's a
up.
good stay. And I hope you guys have a safe
Thank
drive
you,
home.
Representative. I really do appreciate your comments.
What we're hearing.
I will be flying to DC.
That is a
Don't
sentiment
have them
that
pull their engine
several
up. I
other
don't have every intention to tell them the same story with the same
I have
passion.
really good friends here that I talk to all the time.
Secretary of Interior and
I used to
Secretary
work
of
for
That.
Congressman Chenoweth.
And
so
I've
I was
already had a
alive.
phone call out of the White House.
We've had
Dr.
lots of
Brock,
threats,
yeah.
believe me, with her. Holy
Thank you.
cow.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Administration with dealing
But
with throughout
I'm
the West.
hopeful that our message is gonna be to the public that this process, there's a correct process in the United States.
We're not
I don't think
fixed
any of
yet.
us are here.
And it's already been
Look,
happening long before the budget.
I really wish somebody would have just said,
Congress is
"Hey,
working
we're
on
gonna have
it.
somebody
They
that's gonna
want
address this issue.
long before
But once
they
they go
say-
home, they're home.
So, I'm just
Yeah,
gonna
thank
tell
you.
you,
They're gone.
That was it.
Go back to your families, is what I've been
I think
saying.
one of the concerns.
But I almost feel like
There's one person.
there's a point when, in these types of situations where somebody feels that they've gone to a point of no return.
Different agendas.
And I'm fearful that we're gonna do that.
I think you're already there. This guy was resolute from day one.
Does he still
I'm hoping.
have?
But if he's resolute by himself, that's different than being resolute with however many around the world.
because I think
That's not.
there's a lot of
I
what
would
goes
also
on
love to share your solutions, some of the solutions you guys implemented here for us in the future. There, I mean, we had the wildfires in Washington, devastation, massive fires in Washington. Of course, Ms. Mayor, it wasn't
I think we
necessarily
all have that
BLM,
same
it was
concern.
more Forest Service, but I'd love to see some of the solutions you guys have.
Rural
I
fire,
understand what it means.
rural fire protection associations have been.
These guys live here.
Judge, do you have your keys so I can
I was
unlock
laughing
the
at
front door?
friends back
So I'd love to
east.
share.
Yeah, let's do it.
Solutions.
I'm tickled to do it.
I'm sure there's
and I'll
people
be
waiting
happy
to
get
get
on
into
to
it
it.
in our New York
Well,
office.
there's nothing wrong with
Actually,
that. I
I'd
just
like-
don't want it to muddy the water.
They-
I want to make sure that
They were like,
that we're all working towards the same goal. And
I've done this
once we can get them
conversation.
along,
guys, you have to deal with the
I,
scope, right?
I understand that, but it hasn't got us
It's like an
anywhere yet.
accessory package.
And all I
on
want
a
to do is
vehicle
find a
out
way
there.
for us to
Come
get
on.
there.
You just, you know, it's
And
nothing
the
to
word-
worry about.
They
Everybody's
don't
got,
They
everybody.
don't
I know,
know.
I know.
It's-
No, and we want them home too. We want them out of here.
But I mean, don't go out there.
It's a different.
Anyway,
It is.
I've said my
As a
piece.
positive, I would love to get some solutions, I really
Okay,
would.
let's talk.
Because we work very closely with South Idaho, because we kind of have the same, Southern Idaho is kind of a separate, there's different land issues down there than there is up in the north, and so we have, I'd love to just see some of those solutions and contact you if you don't mind. Do you have a card by chance?
And it's different than the Bundy deal. Down there, they thought they were protecting life and property. Seriously. Here it's not at all.
No, that's a good point.
Thank
And
you
that's
very
what I
much.
keep telling my
Yeah,
people,
thank you very
this
much
is
for your
totally
patience
different
as well.
deal.
I
You
can
guys
imagine
just
what
stay
you're
home and do
But
business. And I
I'm
know
sorry
that's
that
the way
you've
you
gone
feel
through all
about us,
this.
but we're trying to
Well,
mind our business from
It's
our
not-
part of the world.
I've got two death threats
by
just
far
this
not
week on
just
a
me.
different
It's-
issue,
it's
so
a lot of
I'm
people.
very much aware of how this makes you feel.
Yep.
So,
Thank you.
yeah. Thanks, guys.
Take care, guys. Safe travels.
We're not,
Oh, that's you, Crow.
this is all my junk. I
Hey,
swear
thank
out
you.
of
Got
here.
it. You got a,
He said I could. I thought I left it,
I
some
should have
garbage
brought
in here. I
him
thought I
in
left my other water bottle, but I,
Yeah, this
Thanks.
is-
thank
Yes,
you.
you
Thanks
said.
for taking the time to do this.
Okay.
Have faith.
All right. You letting them out or left that door open?
Doors open, I'll lock it.
Okay.
And say leave, Judge.
All right.
Hey, Sean,
Thanks.
Does
Thank you.
somebody have a card that we can call them and know what we're doing?
Oh,
That would be helpful.
great.
You want more? You
Cell
want to share
phone
them?
on there?
Yeah, so
Or
my,
is this
let's
office
see.
phone the best
Dude.
one to call?
No.
You want, why don't you put your cell phone on there? So
I just want you to know where we're at.
thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that very much.
That would be very helpful.
As Brian said, don't know what your overnight plans are.
Home.
Okay, there aren't a lot of, there aren't a lot of.
Not a lot of
your
choices.
colleagues, there aren't a lot of rooms in the
My
inn.
overnight plan,
Okay.
and I'm taking
I
this with
honestly-
them, so.
If there's planning on staying here, I honestly don't know if there's a motel room available in Hardin County.
Oh, I'm sure. That's
We
what I
had
told them
people
before we got
having to
here.
clear up to John Day.
I hung up.
The state police superintendent had to get a room in
John
John Day.
Day.
Well, I got one I can rent. Representative Hurd also has my number in his cell phone.
Okay, so we'll let you guys know.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right.
It'll be a couple hours as we back. You know politicians.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not,
Bye.
sorry.
Okay, Steve.
I just want to say,
Good job.
I do
It's
not
from your heart,
envy any
Lisa.
of you guys that have to do the politics side. I do not envy that at all.
Too many days in a row.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you did great.
That's-
That's perfect.
They need to hear what the
Yep.
community feels.
Mhm.
There was a little bit of strategy, but I think I lost contact.
No, it was all good. I didn't get all recounted, yeah.
Well,
Hit it.
Yeah, that's, it's
are
on.
you still
No,
recording,
she's up.
Judge?
So,
Yeah, sure.
let's
Yeah,
shut
he
that
said
off.
he had taken care of it.
So,
I